Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Pow, and today I'm doing a review of Donut Fall in Love by Jackie Lau. This is such a great, sweet contemporary romance that is filled with a ton of baking and a lot of really deeper themes, and I just loved it so much. So I want to tell you all about it so that maybe you'll be interested in picking it up too. So this story is about Ryan, who is a Chinese-Canadian up-and-coming actor, and he is going to be participating in sort of a celebrity reality baking show, but he doesn't know anything about baking, so he decides, so that he doesn't make a complete fool of himself, he wants to take some baking lessons, and he signs up for them with Lindsay, who is also a Chinese-Canadian, and she owns a donut and cupcake shop. So they start doing lessons together, and they maybe feel a little bit something more than just interest in baking. They also have gone through a lot of very similar experiences, especially losing parents and dealing with that grief, and they really bond over that. And so this whole story is about the baking and about them kind of dealing with some of those emotional issues and really learning to be together. Content warnings are in the description box below. So there are a bunch of things that I loved about this book, but first and foremost is the baking. There is so much baking in this book. If you, like me, are a fan of things like The Great British Bake Off, you are gonna love this book. It really centers on all of the baking. And Ryan is learning how to make all of these different things, donuts and cupcakes and cakes. And also we see him go through the competition. So if you love that kind of thing, you're gonna love this. Jackie Lau loves to put food in her stories, and when you read this, you are going to want these things. I was very inspired to make donuts for the very first time. I've never made donuts before, but just hearing them in the book making these donuts, I was just so interested in doing it myself. So it was just such a fun experience to be so inspired to bake something because of this romance book, and I just loved all of the scenes where they were baking. Another thing I thought was really well done in this book was the way it talked about the pressures of being a celebrity, both on Ryan and on the people kind of related to him and in his family and the people that he dates. So Ryan is very up and coming. So he's big enough that he's been in a couple of big movies and big TV shows, but he isn't big enough that, you know, he's a super widely known name or has like somebody to manage all of his social media accounts, which means that he's in charge of that. And we see a lot of him trying to manage the sort of stress and anxiety that goes along with being a public figure, especially because there's a lot of things that are kind of put into Twitter, things like that, and he has to deal with that, and we see a lot of that. We also see that anybody who gets involved in his life might become, you know, the topic of Twitter conversations, and that's something that Lindsay really has to figure out if she wants or not. I think one of the things that was really interesting too here is body image. This plays a big part because Ryan is incredibly fit. There's a whole hashtag about his abs, and he does a lot of like shirt off photos on Twitter because people like it. But that means that he has a sort of very restricted diet, and you know, that's an interesting thing coming into this where he's getting very involved with somebody who's all about baking. So there's just so many interesting things about the pressures and the stressors on him as a celebrity and how that interacts with the rest of his life that I thought was really cool and well done. Another aspect of the book that I thought was really well done was the way that it talked about both Ryan and Lindsay and how being Chinese Canadian kind of influences their life. So for Lindsay, it's kind of minimal, other than just her connection to her mom, who herself was born in Canada and maybe a little bit distanced from her Chinese heritage, but trying to reconnect in older life. And for Ryan, there's a lot that plays into the way that he is perceived by people and the role that he plays within the sort of movie industry. because he is somebody who is Asian and he is very sexy and a leading man, and there's a lot of desexualization of Asian men that happens in Hollywood. So there's a lot of pressure on him as a sexy Asian guy to upkeep that image, to sort of be perfect, to sort of pave the way for other people to come after him. So there's a lot of pressures that go along with being Asian in cinema. And so it talks about a lot of those and about the connections that he has with other actors who are Asian and just so many things like that. So I just really liked the way that that was integrated into the rest of their lives and talked about. And then finally, the real emotional heart of this story is a lot of talking about grief and vulnerability. So both Lindsay and Ryan have lost parents and they're dealing with that grief, and it has affected them pretty deeply. Lindsay lost her dad 7 years ago, so it's something that she's had to work through, but it's had long-lasting impacts on her and her ability to really allow herself to connect to other people. For Ryan, he lost his mom only a few months ago, and so that's a very fresh wound for him and his family, and he's really struggling to even have a connection with his family after that loss that has affected the rest of the family so deeply. And so they both are able to be there for each other and support each other and understand what they're going through, but at the same time, both of them have this fear of connection and intimacy and vulnerability that is the crux of what they've got to work through for their relationship. And I just loved that heart and that emotion and the way that it played out in this story. Overall, I think that this was just the perfect romance read for me. I loved how sweet it was, how cute it was, all of the baking, but also the deeper issues that were examined. Also, if you are interested in more books like this, Jackie Lau has an entire series called the Baldwin Village series. I've got a review for that, so I will link it below, that is all about people who own kind of restaurants falling in love, and there's a ton of food in that one as well. No baking competition, but lots of food. So I think that Jackie Lau is just a master at doing food in romance, and I loved this, and I definitely recommend it. If you guys have read this, or if you're interested in reading it, or if you know other romances that have a lot of food, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Just leave me a comment down below.